Alright, what we're going to do today is this employee class program that's in your book. So if you have your book and you want to open it, that's fine. If you don't, that's totally your call either way. But the program that we're going to do as a class is on page 187 and 188. Most of it's on page 187. So ideally when we get done, we're going to create something that looks like this right here. Doesn't look like much. Right there. If everything works, that's what we should have when we get all done. Does that make sense? Now, we're going to do this different than any of the programs we've done before. Again, because of the ignorance of your instructor, who didn't realize what book he ordered, we're jumping in, we're going into objects now. So there's going to be some new stuff in here. Don't let that bother you. We're also going to create two different files for this program. All right? The second file is the one that's going to have our main in it, and it won't be a large file. The first one, when we create it, we will not need to create a main. Now, the reason that I asked you to come over and copy over that folder is that folder has in it just two things. One of them is called employee, and that is those are the comments for the program. All right, that we'll put at the top of the program. All right, and it's going to look a little funky now, right now, because of the fact that I've been playing around with the font sizes too much. So, but again, don't let that bother you. Ideally, at least, again, this is the way the program is going to look when we're all finished with it. We'll see. Don't know why it wouldn't. So, all right. So, like you and like I asked you to do, I'm going to come in here. I've started up Eclipse. All right, we already have programs in here called employee, but it says we're supposed to call this employee class. So that's what I'll call it. All right, so as you've already seen, I'm going to do File, New, Java Project, and the project name, just the name, I'm going to call that employee class. One word. As always, check to make sure your default location is okay. Everything else should be set just to the defaults, and click your finish button, please. So employee class, one word. Always start classes with an uppercase letter. All right, so just like that. And I'm going to click finish in just a second. You'll notice it over on the side here, I do not have an employee class. I will in just a minute. As soon as I click finish, there's my employee class. All right. I'm going to open up that class on the source folder that you see right here. I'm going to right mouse click, and I'm going to choose New Package. All right. I want it under the employee class, and as always, for me at least, it's edu.blackhawk.jscott. Try to get used to having a consistent package name for the assignments that you're working on. All right. So I've done that. I'm again going to click finish, and now I have my package. Now I'm ready to create my class. Right mouse click again, New Class, and I'm just going to call this one employee. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. And again, I do not need a main, so I can leave that out. So I've got employee in here. Everything else will stay to the defaults, and click finish. Now, I'm asking this because the question I'm about to ask you, I'm ignorant of. Does what I just said make sense to everybody? I mean, if I tell you to do that we don't have to spend a lot of time saying create the project, then create the package, then create the class? All right. So, I pasted in the comments. The ones that I just told you about. I told you where they were, and I just pasted them in. Move this down a little bit. Again, it's because I was playing with the fonts. So we have at least a minimum of documentation on here. I like to see that, again, at a minimum. So again, ideally when we get done, got goofed up again. This is again what our output is going to end up looking like. All right, something similar to this. We will do everything that's in here in these comments. Again, if we don't finish it today, not a problem. Then we'll finish it next class. If we finish it today, great. Also notice there is a built-in dictionary in here. It doesn't understand arg. It doesn't understand accessor, Susan, Myers, Jones, and Rogers. That's not a problem. Don't worry about that stuff. So I'm getting right to the beginning here. And again, I do not, as mentioned, do not have a main. It just says public class employee. All right, so let's take a second to take a look at what it is we're about to do. This is what we're doing right now. We're writing this class that's called, it says named employee, and that is what it's named. Not the name of the project, but the name of the class. And it's going to have these three fields in there. A name field, which is a string, an ID number, which is an int, and a department, which is a string. Oh, I'm sorry, 4 fields. And a position, which is also a string. So the first thing we're going to do is create those 4 pieces of data. All right. Then, as it says, the class should have the following constructors. You go, I don't know what a constructor is. That's what this chapter is about. All right. So we're going to create 3 different constructors. There are 3 things that are going to have the same name. What's going to be different is what we put inside of the parentheses. Okay, and you'll see that in just a minute. Then we'll create these. Now, when we get to this point, what I'm going to suggest, and I'm going to show you 2 different ways of doing the same thing. Then you can pick your own. I'm going to suggest you use the second way I'm going to show you because it'll automatically write stuff for you. If you don't like that, you want to write it yourself, you can do it that way also. Okay? All right, so when we get done, then we're going to have to write another program. Instead of calling it employee, it's going to be employee demo. When we write the employee demo, we're going to create 3 employee objects. One called Susan, one called Mark, one called Joy. And then we're going to say we want the stuff that's in here to be printed out. So ideally, that's going to be our output. I'm not going to say, does that make sense? Because it may not totally make sense right now. So we'll get through as much of this program as we can today. What we do not finish today, if any, we'll finish on Wednesday. Then on Wednesday, I'm going to go into Chapter 3 of the book. Again, I do not, right here, if you looked, you say, well, wait a minute, you told us you didn't have the, yeah, this is the old version of the book. All right, the program is the same, but it's the old version of the book. The homework that you're going to be doing, if you care, is the next problem that's in here. Write a class named car with the following fields: year, model, make, and speed. And then you're going to create a constructor, accessors, accelerate, and brake methods and demonstrate those in a class. We'll go over all that stuff on Wednesday. All right? All right, so I'm going to come back in here, and I'm literally going to start keying in some code. So the first thing, as I said, is we need these 4 pieces of data: a name, an ID number, a department, and a position. Now, if you'd please, everybody, if you would all please, I'm going to just hit enter a few times just so I can move that up. You don't have to do that. I'm going to enter those 4 pieces of data, but please watch what I'm doing here because I'm going to do it a little differently than we did it last time. All right? So I'm going to create those 4 pieces of data. Don't worry about typing them in yet. I'll give you time. I'm going to have string, emp name, string, ID number, string, department, and I'm sorry, the ID number is an int. Int ID number and string position. Now, if you'd all stop, even if you're typing, just stop for a second and look up here. In the past, we did stuff like this. We said equals, double quote, double quote. All right, so we would have done that here, and we would have done that here, and we would have done that here, and here we would have said equals 0. We're not going to do that anymore. All right? because typically these are what are called class variables. These four variables, emp name, ID number, department, and position, those are variables that are associated with the employee class. You initialize your variables not here, not in main like we had been doing. You initialize those variables in what's called a constructor. We're going to do that in just a minute. So I'm going to get rid of all that stuff. I'm just going to have the variable type, the name of the variable, and a colon, semicolon rather. All right, so I'd like you to put those in, please. Years ago, I had somebody ask me, they said, okay, in a nutshell, giving it to me in 30 seconds or a couple sentences or whatever, tell me the difference between an object-oriented programming language and a non-object-oriented programming language. And I said, all right, I'll keep it as simple as I possibly can. All right, when I was a professional programmer, I programmed in the C language. Okay, the project that I worked on literally had about 12 million lines of code in it. I was responsible for about 10,000 of those lines of code. Okay, and when you work with a C program, imagine that you write a program and the program's got 500 lines of code in it. Okay, if you're writing a C program, what you're going to have probably are about 10 different functions in there, each one about 50 lines apiece. When you write with an object-oriented programming language like Java, your functions, or methods as they're called in there, are smaller. So with a 500-line program, instead of having 10 functions with 50 lines each, you'll have 50 functions, 10 lines each. So you write smaller, more compact methods. That's what we're going to start doing right now. All right? We're going to end up right now, just so you know, everything that we write for this program will be in between these curly braces. This is the class, right there. So we're going to keep adding stuff to the class. All right, so the first thing we're going to put in here is I'm going to put a comment in that says this is our no-arg constructor. And I'm just going to type a little bit. Again, be as particular or as non-particular with these as far as lining stuff up as you want to be. All right? Now, so notice it says there, no arg constructor. You may or may not have already figured this out, but even if you're still typing, if you look up here for a second, there's nothing in the parentheses. I'm not asking you that. I'm not even telling you that. You can all see that. That means there are no arguments being supplied to this constructor. All right? So if I create what's called an object based on this, I'll pass it in nothing. And it'll automatically set my employee name to the empty string, my ID number to 0, my department to the empty string, and my position to the empty string. So if I create an employee object and pass nothing in here, this is what's going to happen. You'll see this in a little bit as we go on. And even when we get done, if you go, I'm still really confused. And again, not trying to sound like a smart aleck, read Chapter 3 before Wednesday, please. All right, so that's the first constructor. All right, so here, I'll just call this all args passed in constructor. And because I want to cheat a little bit here, I'm going to copy this and then make some changes accordingly. Does everyone have that keyed in that's in blue? Anybody? Okay. This one, I just want to move that down a little, that's all. All right? Because I'm going to type in one more of these. The good news is this first file has got about 120 lines in it. And if you look up here, we're already on about line 85. It's not like you've got a lot of code that you've got to type in. And the other good news is what we're about to do next, it's going to be put in for you automatically. That's kind of nice. Virtually the rest that you have to type into this file, it's going to be automatic for you in just a minute. And I don't know why that says SAML. I have no idea. After you get done with this, there'll be probably about 40 or 50 more lines, of which 42 out of the 50 will be automatically put in here for you. And when I tell you what to do in just a second, you'll have to type in the other 8. Then we're done with this class. Not today, with the employee class. All right, all of a sudden I see faces. Oh, good. It's crummy outside. I just want to get the hell out of here. All right, now. Double check and make sure I'm taping here. Good, I am. All right. Did anybody notice anything funny? You notice how these are 2 routines and they have the same name? All right. The constructor, and there's actually 3 of them in here because that was the first one. The constructor in Java always has to have the same name as the name of your class. So since the name of the class is employee, this has to say public employee, and public employee. That's the first thing. So we have created 3 constructors based off of our class. Since we've got 3 different methods that all have the same name, but they're all doing something a little bit different, they're referred to as overloaded methods. They're overload. All right, so if you've never heard that term before. Jim will probably tell you in the afternoon, it's sometimes when you're working with MySQL, when you use the plus sign, sometimes it means addition, sometimes it means concatenation. That's an overloaded operator. It's an operator that does different things depending on the context. This is an overloaded method. The system will always know which of these 3 methods to call because you'll either pass in nothing, 4 things, or 2 things. Does that make sense? You can overload any method that you create in Java. What you'll also see in just a couple minutes is you can even overload Java's methods, because I'm going to have you do that in just a minute. All right. Now, one thing, if you look back up here, so what we've done so far is we did this. We created the name, the ID, the department, and the position. Those things from line 6 through 17, that's this stuff right there. That's what's called, those are what are called our class variables, right there. All right. Then we were told we should have 3 constructors. One that accepts nothing. All right. Which is that one, I guess. One that accepts everything, and one that accepts just the first 2. And that's what we had here, here, and here. So what we've already done is we've already, as far as our comments go, we've already done all that stuff. Everything that's in the blue. All right. So what's left is to do this and to do this. Now, I want to show you, and I don't want you to type this in. I want to show you the, quote, bad way of doing this. What we want to do is we want to write accessor methods, and technically we're going to write both accessor and mutator methods. Okay? Now, if I do this, and maybe you've heard me say stuff like this before, I don't know, but if I do this, let's suppose for a second that Eric and I are having a conversation, and it's the first day of class, and I say, hello, what's your name? All right? And I don't know your name yet, so you come back and you say, it's Eric. Okay? That's called an accessor. I'm asking you a question, you're giving me an answer. All right? It's not like, I mean, I probably could say this, I don't know why I would, and I might get in trouble for doing it, but he says, it's Eric, and I go, no, it's not. From now on, it's Bob. First of all, it would make no sense to do that, even if I could. But the point is, when you have accessor methods, you're asking and receiving information, but you're not allowed to typically change that information. All right? On the other hand, on the day he was born, that's probably the only time, okay? Is it K, is it C or K? K, that's what I thought. I don't know why I looked at it. All right. That's probably the only time that Eric's name was set. That's a mutator. So if you plan on changing a value, you're mutating it. Mutate means change. If you're planning on asking the person for information, that's an accessor. Okay? And the only reason I'm bringing that up is in the stuff that you're doing with Jim in the afternoon, you're going to spend a lot of time writing stuff like this. Select star from employees. And that'll give you all the information from the employees table. That's an accessor. As you go on, you'll do things like insert into a table, or update what's in a table, or delete what's in a table. Those are mutators. So if you're changing something, it's a mutator. If you're asking, it's an accessor. And the reason I'm telling you that is in this language, and in most languages, when you do accessors, they're also called get methods. And when you do mutators, they're also called set methods. Okay? Now, if I wanted to, I don't want you to do this, but if I wanted to, I could start typing stuff in here. All right? I'd like you to take your, if you've got all this typed in, and hopefully you do, if your cursor isn't down there on around line 88 where mine is, or close. So right after the last constructor, put your cursor there. Don't type though. Because what I want to show you is if I wanted to, if I wanted to, I could come in now and just start typing. In fact, I could type in like this. Public string get emp name. Again, don't do this, please. And I could say return emp name. Okay? That's an example. Since it starts with get, that's an accessor. And then I could come in and say public void set emp name. String n. This dot name equals m. I could do both those. Oh, that should have been an n. Sorry. Why is it being underlined? Create field, name field type. Oh, it's emp name. Sorry. So I could write these and basically copy them and put one in for ID number and for department and for position. I can do that. There's absolutely no problem doing that, except I don't have to. Okay, and now I'm going to remove this, and you can all do what I'm about to show you, if I remember how to do it. So it'll be interesting. All right, I think it's under refactor. No, it's not. It's under source. So under source, all right, so click source on your menu and go down to where it says get setter, generate getters and setters. click on that, make sure all 4 of these are checked, and we want to do both getters and setters. I guess I could have just done the select all also, and click OK. And it wrote all of them for me. See that? It just wrote all this. It just wrote get emp name, set emp name, get ID number, set ID number, get department, set department, and get position, set position. Now you can feel free, if you'd rather, you can key those in manually. All right? I don't like to do that. I do like to have my curlies on a line by themselves. Maybe that's just me and I'm weird that way. You don't have to do that. Again, what I want you to do is to start to establish your own style. All right? So we manually put in our class variables. So I could have put a comment here. You don't have to, but all right, declare class variables. All right. Declare 3 constructors. All right. And then down here, declare accessors and mutators. All right. Now, I'm not even saying to you, does the stuff that's in here make sense? It won't until we start to really go through Chapter 3. Okay? There's only, I think if I counted right, like 8 more lines of code that we have to type in here. All right? And after we put that in, we're done with this file. Okay? So I'd like you to be down right towards the bottom now. All right, so I'm right here, right underneath the set position, get position. I want to write one more. We're going to override now one of Java's methods. Did you hear what I said? We're going to override one of Java's methods. So when we call it, it will make it do what we want it to do, as opposed to what Java wants it to do. All right? And it's called the toString method. And I said you have to type in 8 lines. That's 4 of them right there. Yeah, 3 of them right there. Okay. That's the whole first file, and in a couple minutes we'll do the second file, and then we'll take a break and come back and look at it. This is the whole second file. That's main. Not very big. 25 lines. 26, something like that. All right? Now, does this make... I'm going to say something. Tell me if this makes sense to you. All right? Right now, we probably can try to compile this program, but we can't run it because what is this program missing? What method does this program not have? Rhymes with pain. It does not have a main. Main will be in the other. Yeah, people are now Dane, Fein, Gain. No, it does not have a main. All right, but I wanted to get all this stuff keyed in and saved. So make sure you save. All right, and you may even get an error. And if we do, don't worry about it. And because the reason we're getting an error right now is because there is no main associated with this particular program. We're going to put the main in right now. All right. Is everybody caught up? Or pretty close? Again, you'll have time in just a second. Yes. It's because that's what I called it here. It's not, that's just the name of the method. That's all we're putting in there. What we're doing here is we're setting this variable equal to that method call concatenated with 2 tabs and that method call and 2 tabs and that method call and 2 tabs. And in fact, we don't even need these last 2 tabs on the end. I don't know why I put those there. Yes, it automatically created those. All right, let me get rid of a couple of these. I got a lot of blank spaces in here that I really don't need, so I'm just going to get rid of them. All right, I'm going to save. Now, I'm going to create the main. Okay? So what I'd like you to do, if you would, you know the drill by now. We're going to do a file, new, but now we're not going to do project because we want to put it right in where we are right now. We don't have to do a new project. We don't have to do a new package, but we have to create another class. All right? So I'm going to go down to class right here, bless you. And it's in the employee class. What do we want to call this? Well, I'm going to call it employee demo because that's what it is. We're demoing the employee class. So I'm going to call it employee demo. And please look up here, make sure, now we want a main. So make sure that's checked. Once you've got all that in there, just click finish. All right, and now we've got this. And I'm just cleaning mine up a little bit. All right, now I'm going to start typing. Inside of main, I want to create, the first thing I want to do is I want to create, what I'm going to want to do in here is create 3 employee objects. One called Susan, one called Mark, all right, and one called Joy. Why do I want to do that? Because that's what we were told to do up here. We can call them whatever we want. We can call them employee 1, employee 2, and employee 3, but since their names are Susan, Mark, and Joy, to me it makes sense to call them Susan, Mark, and Joy. All right? Plus what we want to do, please take a look up on the screen here, is we want to create these objects in 3 different ways. We want to create one of them that has everything passed in, one that has 2 things passed in, and one that has nothing passed in. So we want to be able to use and make sure we use every method we have in the program when we're testing it. All right? So I'm going to start typing the stuff in right now. after you get done with this, there's 6 lines to go, and then we're done. Did I make a mistake? Ah, thank you. Can everybody look up on the screen here for a minute? What I'm going to write next is this. See that? I don't know how many there are, so I'm going to put a bunch of equal signs in there, but you might have to adjust those. You understand what I'm saying? When we actually run this. Because I like to cheat. Like that, I'll do that instead of writing it myself. Now, I'm not sure if I typed in anything incorrect, so I'm going to check it real quick. I'm going to do a run. And let's see. I know I can tell already it looks really ugly, but there's the output. So I'm going to have to just work with my last one that's on here a little bit. All right, that's not too bad for a first take on it. Okay. And I expected very little of that made sense to you, so that's what we're going to talk about when we come back from the break. Let's take a break and make sure everybody has time to catch up. We'll start up again at 5 to 11, or 5 after 11 rather. Let me stop taping and I'll come right back to the code.